He laughed when I begged him to stay. But when I handed him the court order with the mansion's title in my name, I laughed louder. It started with silence. The kind that creeps into a marriage long after the apologies have stopped. I sat on the edge of the cream velvet sofa in the living room I once designed with love, watching as Adrian zipped his suitcase without even glancing in my direction. "Please," I whispered, my voice barely holding together. "Don't do this. Don't leave. We can fix it." He paused, just for a second, then let out a slow chuckle. Not the soft, nervous kind, this was sharp, cruel. "God, you're pathetic when you cry," he said, shaking his head. "You really think I'd give up my freedom for this?" His hand swept over the room like it disgusted him, even though he once called it our castle. I stood up, my heart thudding. "Adrian, I've given you everything. I walked away from my job, my dreams, just to support you. At least respect that." He turned, and for a moment I saw the man I married. Confident, charming, dangerous. "Respect?" he snorted. "You're lucky I'm not taking everything. I already spoke to the lawyers. There's a separation agreement waiting for you in the study. You'll sign it tonight." I blinked. "Tonight?" His voice dropped lower. "Or I'll make sure your name is forgotten on every document tied to this house. You know I can do it." He wasn't bluffing. Adrian was a master manipulator. Wealthy, connected, and dangerously persuasive. He had made me feel like a queen once. Now I was just an obstacle in his way. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Not this time. I walked into the study and saw the document neatly stacked on the table. Every clause screamed humiliation. I'd get nothing. No spousal support, no assets, not even my name on the property title. The mansion we built together? All his. He stood behind me, arms folded. "Sign it. Be smart for once." I picked up the pen. My hand trembled. I didn't look at him. I signed every page. Quiet. Composed. Dignified. He didn't notice the tiny recording device tucked inside the velvet notebook on the shelf. He didn't hear himself say, "This house means more to me than you ever did." He should have known better than to underestimate the woman who helped him build his empire. Because that night, something inside me cracked. But not from pain. Cracked open, into clarity. And the next morning I made my first call. To a lawyer. To a different kind of future. I signed away everything that night. But what he didn't know was that I had started recording weeks ago. And soon, those recordings would make him regret every cruel word. The day I signed that agreement, I became invisible to Adrian. But what he didn't know was that invisibility made me dangerous. I spent the first few days after he left walking around the mansion like a ghost. Not sad, just quiet. Watching, listening, remembering. Every inch of this house held pieces of me. The soft lavender drapes I had sewn by hand, the gold-trimmed mirror we argued over at the antique market, the piano I never got around to playing. And yet, to him, none of it meant anything. He didn't even pack a picture of us. I stared at the separation agreement again. It was brutal, one-sided, legally airtight, or so he thought. But Adrian had forgotten one thing. Narcissists love to hear themselves talk. And I had learned to listen. It started a few months ago during one of his tirades. He accused me of being ungrateful because I had asked him to come home earlier for dinner. That night, as he slammed his wine glass on the table and shouted, "This house, this life, it's mine. You're just borrowing it." Something in me said, "Record him." So I did. I bought a tiny voice recorder online, smaller than a lipstick tube. Hid it in the study, the bedroom, even in the walk-in closet. Every time he stormed in, every time he made another threat, another cruel comment about the prenup, the house, my worth, I got it all. I named the folder on my laptop, just in case. I never thought I'd use it. I just wanted to feel like I had something. Like if one day I woke up and everything was gone, I'd still have proof that I wasn't crazy. That his emotional warfare was real. Now, that folder was about to become my weapon. I forwarded a few of the clearest recordings to a lawyer friend, Stella. She didn't ask questions. Just called me back and said, "This changes everything." Apparently, What Adrian didn't know was that coercion and emotional abuse could make the separation agreement void, especially with proof. And I had more than proof. I had his words, his threats, his confessions, crystal clear. I built this house. I'll bury you before I let you take it. That sentence alone was enough to open a case. Stella said we'd file to overturn the agreement, and then go after the house itself. Because while my name wasn't on the title, my money and my sweat were in every single room. Adrian thought he was untouchable, thought he'd walked away clean. But I wasn't chasing him anymore. I was chasing justice, and I had receipts. While Adrian was busy vacationing with his new girlfriend in Zanzibar, I was busy building a legal case that would knock him off his marble throne, starting with his beloved mansion. While he posted shirtless photos in Zanzibar with his new girlfriend, I was filing evidence in court and walking through the mansion he forgot I still had keys to. The first time I returned to the house after he left, it felt like stepping into someone else's life. The lights were off. The silence felt staged. And yet, everything was exactly where I left it. His cologne still sat on the dresser, a half-empty bottle of wine on the counter, and the photo of us on the staircase, cracked in the corner, like someone had knocked it over and didn't bother to fix it. I stood at the doorway, fingers wrapped around the keys he assumed I'd thrown away. He had forgotten who I was, the woman who remembered every password, every drawer he hid things in, every weakness he tried to disguise as charm. I wasn't there to vandalize or to cry. I was there for documentation. Stella had told me, get everything, receipts, emails, paper trails, anything that proves you were part of building that home, emotionally, financially, physically. So I did. The marble countertops in the kitchen, paid for with the bonus I received from my former job, the one I quit to support Adrian's business. The luxury chandelier in the hallway, a gift from my late mother passed down to me. Not him. Even the architect's blueprints had both our signatures. I scanned every document, snapped every photo, filed it all in a drive labeled, for court. It was poetic. While Adrian was sipping cocktails with some new blonde girl, probably telling her the same lies he once told me. You're different? I've never felt like this before. I was quietly building a case strong enough to rip the rug from under him, and he had no idea. The final piece? A video from a home security camera he forgot about. One that caught him months ago, pacing the backyard on a phone call with a friend, saying, even if she signs, I'll keep the house. She's too emotional to fight back. That clip was time-stamped, saved, and forwarded to Stella. The smile on her face during our next meeting told me everything I needed to know. He won't see this coming, she said. We're going to file a motion to overturn the agreement this week. And trust me, with what you've got, the court will listen. I nodded, still calm. I wasn't after revenge. I was after my dignity. And this time I wasn't asking for it. I was taking it back with legal documents, hard evidence, and the same silence he once mistook for weakness. 2 weeks later, Adrian came home to find a court summons on his marble kitchen counter, and realized the woman he mocked was the one now threatening his empire. He thought I'd disappear quietly. Instead, I served him a court summons, right in the middle of his brunch with the woman he replaced me with. Adrian always loved grand entrances, but on that particular Sunday, it was my quiet message that stole the show. He had just come back from Zanzibar, bronzed, smiling, wearing his favorite designer shirt, the one I bought for our 3rd anniversary. I watched the video on social media. Him and his new girlfriend, laughing in a rooftop restaurant. He raised a glass of champagne. To new beginnings, he toasted. What he didn't know was that back home, a quiet storm had already been set in motion, and I was the one holding the lightning. 2 days later, just as he sat down for brunch at a luxury cafe in Ikoyi, a woman in a navy suit walked up to his table. Mr. Adrian Olamide? He smiled. Yes. She dropped the envelope in front of him. You've been served. The videos didn't catch his face, but I saw it. Stella's legal assistant recorded the delivery, just as I requested. His smile vanished the moment he saw the court seal on the envelope. Inside was everything: a motion to overturn the separation agreement on grounds of coercion and emotional abuse, a full transcript of recorded threats, an itemized breakdown of my financial contributions to the house, and a notice of intent to claim shared property, starting with the mansion. He called me that night, first with anger, then with panic. "You're out of your mind," he spat. "You signed the agreement." I let him shout. Then I calmly said, "And you coerced me into signing it under emotional duress, with threats I recorded." Silence. "I'm taking the house, Adrian," I added. "Not to hurt you, but because it was never just yours." He laughed nervously. "You think some recordings are enough to take down everything I've built?" "They're enough to expose the truth," I said. "The truth you thought you buried under granite floors and charm." He didn't call back after that, but his lawyer did. Suddenly, Adrian wanted to revisit the terms. Suddenly, he was open to compromise. Stella smiled when I told her. That's what fear looks like. It was never about the house, not really. It was about the way he made me feel disposable, replaceable, as if everything I gave was forgettable. But now the courts knew. The law saw me. The evidence spoke louder than his charm ever could. And this time I wasn't begging him to stay. I was preparing to take the one thing he loved more than me, with silence, strategy, and a signature. The day of the hearing, he walked in smiling. But when the judge played the recording where he said, "This house means more to me than she ever will," that smile shattered. He walked into court with confidence, flashing smiles like he owned the room. But when the judge pressed play on the recording, the room went quiet, and so did he. The courtroom smelled like old wood and paper. Calm, sterile, almost peaceful. I sat beside Stella, my hands folded neatly in my lap, heart steady. This was the moment I'd imagined for weeks. The moment the mask Adrian wore would finally fall. He strode in like he was at a business meeting. Designer suit, polished shoes, that smug air of invincibility. He didn't even look at me, just winked at his lawyer and sat down, legs crossed like he was about to close a deal. I remembered that expression. It was the same look he wore when he lied to my parents about why I wasn't at Christmas dinner. The same smile he gave after throwing my phone across the room and calling it a joke. But this time I wasn't the only one watching. The judge was a stern woman with silver hair and a calm, assessing gaze. After opening statements, she turned to Stella. "You mentioned audio recordings?" she asked. Stella stood. "Yes, Your Honor. Multiple. All obtained within the marital home. We'd like to submit them as evidence of coercion and psychological abuse related to the signing of the separation agreement." The judge nodded. "Let's hear them." A small speaker was placed on the table. The room fell still. Then Adrian's voice filled the courtroom. "This house means more to me than she ever will. She'll sign it. She's too weak to fight me. What court would believe a woman who didn't earn a dime the whole marriage?" His words played like a broken record of cruelty. Arrogant, cold. Every sentence a confession, a threat, a glimpse into the man only I had seen. The judge raised her eyebrows. Adrian looked stunned. This is taken out of context," he stammered. The judge silenced him with a look. "You'll speak when I ask you to." His lawyer leaned over, whispering furiously. I sat still. I didn't need to smile. The truth was already doing the work. When the recording ended, the room remained quiet for a moment. Then the judge spoke. "Based on the evidence presented, I find credible grounds to question the legitimacy of the signed agreement. Furthermore, the petitioner's financial and emotional contributions to the property are substantiated. We will move forward with full proceedings regarding shared assets, including the residence." Adrian shifted in his seat. The mansion, his prized possession, his symbol of control, was now on the table. And for the first time in our entire marriage, he looked scared. Weeks later, I stood at the gates of the mansion, court order in hand. Adrian watched from the driveway as I unlocked the door to the house that was now legally mine. He once laughed when I begged him to stay. Now he watched in silence. As I walked into the house he swore I'd never touch again. It was a sunny Tuesday when the court decision arrived. Official. Final. Binding. The mansion, the one with the grand staircase, the custom kitchen, the backyard garden I once designed for our anniversary, was mine. The judge's ruling cited documented coercion, verifiable contribution, and psychological intimidation as grounds to nullify the separation agreement. The property was to be split. But since Adrian had refused all negotiation, the court granted me full possession pending compensation. He could keep the car collection. I kept the house. I arrived with Stella and a court officer that morning. As we pulled up, Adrian was already outside, leaning on his SUV, pretending to scroll through his phone, pretending he wasn't unraveling. He didn't speak. Not at first. He just stared as I stepped out of the car, heels clicking on the driveway, court documents in one hand, keys in the other. I turned to him. "I told you," I said calmly. "You don't get to decide what I'm worth." He let out a bitter laugh. "Enjoy the house. It'll never love you back." I smiled. "Neither did you," and I walked past him. Every step up to that front door felt like reclaiming years of silence. Years of swallowing pain just to keep the peace. Years of convincing myself that love was supposed to hurt if it looked expensive enough. But now I wasn't walking into a memory. I was walking into a monument of everything I survived. I opened the door. The air inside smelled the same, cinnamon and pine, like I used to keep it. Nothing had changed, yet everything had. I wasn't the same woman who once begged him to love me. Now I loved myself enough to fight back. I stood in the hallway, sunlight spilling through the tall windows, warming the tiles beneath my feet. I was no longer a guest in my own life. This house was mine. Not just legally, emotionally, powerfully, permanently. As I placed the court papers on the marble counter, the same marble he once said I'd never see again, I took a deep breath and laughed, not out of bitterness, but out of peace. Because in the end, the silence he mocked became the storm he never saw coming. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell. Thank you. We hope to see you in our next video.